Stampers, I'm Lorraine Sish from stampwithlorraine.com, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator in the United States, and I love sharing tutorials with you and tips and tricks to improve or teach you about some of the fabulous things that we do in the stamping world and paper crafting. So I also always feature and only use the Stampin' Up products because I'm a demonstrator for Stampin' Up. Of course, I believe in the products. They're great products. You can't buy this quality anywhere else in the big box stores. So I would love to share with you today the Designer Series paper, which we often call DSP. Sometimes I forget and I just call it DSP, and people say, what's DSP? Designer Series paper. And that's the printed pattern paper that comes usually in 12 by 12 or 6 by 6 sheets. And what's great about the Stampin' Up paper is it's two-sided. Also, the weight of it is fabulous. It's not flimsy at all. It's a little thinner than the cardstock, so it's great for layering. But look at those beautiful two-sided patterns. It's great because you can get a lot of different uses out of the two sides, so you're not stuck with just the one side. And sometimes, though, it's hard to decide which side you want to use. You hate to cover up one side because you're using the other. Well, this card I'm going to make for you today features both sides, so you don't have to decide. It's okay. You can actually use both. So I hope you stay tuned. I have 3 different ones to show you today, and I hope you try some of your own. Follow me on Facebook and share some of your products there, your own projects there. And if you don't have a Stampin' Up demonstrator, I'd love to be yours. I'd love to send you a catalog if you need one. So please be in touch and enjoy the tutorial today. Okay, so today's card helps you get the most out of your Designer Series paper. As you know, the Designer Series paper is two-sided, and sometimes it's hard to decide which side you want to use, and you hate to cover up one side because you're using the other side. You kind of feel like you're wasting something. So this is going to be a way that you can enjoy both sides of your Designer Series paper. And it's a little bit different way to build your card. So I'm going to just show you a quick basic design. Then we're going to step it up into 2 other designs. So I'm going to use this pattern from Textured Chic, which is really pretty. Has a little gold foiling on one side, and the other side is just a flat print. I'm going to be using, for my card base, the Mango Melody. This is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so your standard card size, but just one sheet. It's not double and folded and scored, so just one sheet of that. Then underneath that, I already put this together. I have a 1/4 inch less than that, so it's 5 1/4 by 4. I have that in soft suede. Then I have that Designer Series paper folded, so we're going to have that 5 1/8 wide, so that's going to give us just that teeny tiny border, 1/16 all the way around, 5 1/8 by 7 3/4, and then we're going to score that in half, so that will be 3 7/8. Okay, so then we fold that and we just layer those all together. So when you open your card, you will see that pretty paper on the inside. Okay, then we have a piece of white that is 3 by 4 1/4, and I stamped a little bit of my image on the inside here, and then it gives me plenty of room to write, or if you want to stamp a sentiment there, that's fine too. And of course, this could be any size you want, but if it's this size, a little smaller, then you still get to see some of that pretty border around there. All right, so now we're just going to decorate the front. I'm going to take another piece of the soft suede. Okay, this is my color number 2, or if it coordinates with your paper, you can use a 3rd color. I did that on my next card. You'll see in a moment. So that's, this piece is, okay, this is 1/8 of an inch bigger than a piece of vellum that we're going to use to overlay. So now, as you can see, I embossed this little piece of vellum. The vellum is 2 1/2 by 3 1/2. So now my base, the layer underneath, is just 1/8 of an inch bigger. Okay, so then it's going to give just a tiny bit of that border all the way around. All right, so I embossed this with the Pretty Flowers embossing folder. This one is not 3D. It's nice and flat. Okay, the 3D embossing folders mean that the raised parts are different levels to give it that more 3D effect. Okay, obviously this is 3D too, but the by our standards, but there's really only two layers. There's the layer of that the vellum actually was, and then the part that's embossed. Everything that's embossed is all the same layer, so it feels flat. It doesn't feel all bumpy. So this is just the regular regular embossing folder, Pretty Flowers. Okay, and I just love that. It shows up so nicely against the darker color, right? So now remember, when putting in vellum on your projects, you want to be careful because sometimes your adhesives can show through. If you had glue dots, and obviously foam dimensionals will not be good because they will surely show up. So you want to try to hide where you're going to put your adhesive. There are different options. You can always take some glue and with a sponge and sponge it all over the back, which you will not see, and you put it down. So that's one option. Or you can just kind of hide where you put your tape runner, or your if you're using glue dots or whatever your glue, you can hide it under some of the other things that you're doing. All right, so I'm going to, I kind of want, because this is sort of a how should I say it? Like a boho look in a way. I'm not going to mind that it's not so perfectly laid down, because it has that splattered look and, little, that shabby chic. That's what I'm trying to think of. Okay. Kind of like a shabby chic look to it. So I'm not going to mind if this looks like it's, not completely laid down. I think it kind of goes with the style. All right. So then we need just a little image to go over here. And I'm choosing the Dragonfly Garden. Okay, I'm going to stamp one of those dragonflies, and then I'm going to punch it out. Here's a little trick that I like to do. I take, for something like this, especially if it has two punches to it, I like to kind of get an idea of, if I only want the one that's underneath, I want to get an idea of what size paper I need to put in there, so I'm not using a whole sheet of paper, say like this, and punching out something that I don't need and kind of wasting that paper. So what I did was I measured my image, and if you could see here, I wrote right on there, it says 1 3/4. So that's how tall my dragonfly is. So I cut a strip of paper that's 2 inches so that when I can slide it down in there, it's just the right size, and I'm not cutting out that little guy up there or using too much paper. So that's just my little cheat that I like to do there. So we're going to just stamp that real quick and then punch it out. And that's going to be my little focal point on the front there. Now this is soft suede, and I do need to re-ink it, so it's not going to be the darkest, but that's okay because some of this has that faded look anyway. Okay, so that's fine. And then look how easy it is then to punch it out. Real quick. And I'm not wasting the part on top where the little dragonfly was. Okay, so now our little guy is just going to go on the side there. And I already punched the sentiment, "Thank you for your kindness," that also came from the Dragonfly Garden set. I'm just going to cut diagonals on either side here. I kind of like that look. And if I wanted, I could have it coming off the side like a banner, or just leave one side straight. Or if I wanted to cut the other side on an angle, if you want the same angle, you can always use the end that you cut off to be a guide, flip it over, and then you'll get the same angle that you cut over here. So if you wanted to just follow that line like that, then you have the same on both sides. So we're going to just put that all together. Like I said, I already did my 3 layers and my inside for you. And so now I'm just going to kind of get an idea where my images are going to be. And going to lay that on there. So I'm going to put some of my adhesive here. And I found the Seal Plus, Stampin' Seal Plus, doesn't show up quite so much, especially under the very more busy parts of the embossing, because this is actually just little strips, and it's very, very thin. So around here, I know is where I'm going to be putting my dragonfly. So I'm going to just put that there. And then about here, I'm going to put my, can even just leave it under there so I know where my sentiment is going to go. Okay, so you can see straight through where that is. You can even attach it ahead of time if you're not going to use dimensional dots. But I am going to use dimensional dots, so I'm not going to do that right now. So that will start holding it down for me. And so that looks really pretty. I could probably put just a little, sneak a little something in here, just a tiny piece, and that's not going to be seen. All right, and if you do see a little something, it's not so bad. Where you have a lot, I don't know if you can see that. You can see the little lines of that adhesive there, but my sentiment's going over there. All right, so now I'm going to adhere this down. And again, you can put it wherever you want. You can make this a horizontal card, a vertical card. I'll show you different options. I'm going to go down to the bottom right. I saw this design on another demonstrator, Anna Hellman, that I like to see a lot of her projects. And she too says, oh, I tend to always do things in the bottom right. And I said, well, that's me too. I tend to do that a lot as well. All right, so then I'm going to adhere that down with some dimensional dots. And same with the dragonfly. I'm going to put them on first and then peel them and arrange them both at the same time. Okay, now, there we go. That'll be fine. Okay, so I'm finding where that was and where that was. I'm just going to cover that up. All right, and then we're good. We have our card. How quick and easy, right? Okay, probably the most time-consuming thing is doing the embossing on that little piece of vellum. But make sure you have your vellum cut to size before embossing it, because if you're going to try to cut it, it might just tear where the vellum is weakened a little bit from the embossing lines. If you have a really sharp guillotine cutter, then you might be able to do it, but best to always cut your vellum before embossing. So cut it to the size. And then also you can arrange where you want to put your vellum in the embossing pattern. You can move it around to wherever you think you want, get the most of your pattern. Like I made sure to get some of those flowers in there as opposed to getting too much of the leaves and a partial flower. So you can always arrange where you want that to go. So that's kind of nice, and it has a lot of color on the inside as well. And because of this extra layer, it gives the designer series paper a little extra support when opening it up. So that's something a little bit different, and it kind of saves a little bit on your bulk too, because you only have one layer of the back, and so it's not as thick of a card as some of our normal cards would be. All right, so that's one. Now, next one real quick is going to be using something new from the new mini catalog, Desert Details, where it has these nice, they look like succulents to me. Maybe they could be some other kind of cactus flower. I'm not totally sure, but you can make them whatever you want to be. So you have two size flowers, you have some nice sentiments, and you have some of these Western desert or Native American type patterns on the side here, which give you some nice borders. And there are dies that coordinate with that. And one of the nice things Stampin' Up! Is doing now is coordinating the titles. Desert Details for the stamps, Desert Details for the dies. So it's easy to remember what goes with what. Okay, so here are the dies that come with that. You have a border that coordinates with pattern here. Not exactly the same, but of the same style. And I'm going to show you what that all looks like. Here is how that border gets punched. It actually punches out the whole border. Okay, it isn't like it's going to stay within your card. And I did it in 2 colors just to make it a little bit easier to see. Maybe you could see the Cajun craze a little bit better. But really kind of neat. You have that sawtooth kind of edging there, which is neat, and then little zigzaggy pattern on the inside. So I hope you can see that. If not, you can see it in some pictures that I take a little bit later. All right, and then you also have another pattern that is this die here that actually cuts out these little shapes. All right, so it doesn't cut a strip like this. There's no cutting around it, but you can add this pattern to anything and then back it with a different color, or use a color on top and back it with white, whatever you like, or different pattern paper. So that's kind of a cool thing there. Then you have this. This really reminds me of like a Native American blanket. This diamond-shaped pattern here gives you that jagged edge with the holes punched out, but also embosses a little diamond on the inside too. So it's kind of fun if you put a bunch of these together to look like a Navajo blanket. All right, so that one is there. And then you also have this little bunch of leaves here. I'll show that to you on your card. So obviously they just punch out of, this is what was left. So it just punches out like that. I decided to save, you know me, I save all these little things, to save the inner part of that little, those leaves, that little plant. You can either inlay them back in there and it would look like an embossed look, or you can save them and use them for something else. So I'll just throw them in this little bag and they'll be all set to go. Now the bigger frames that we have here, these are 2 separate frames, turn out like this. Here is the bigger one. Okay, just put that here so you can see how it gets cut out. So you can actually use this as a background as well for something if you wanted. And this cuts out the points and embosses a little pattern around the edge. So that's really neat there. And then the smaller frame, this one here, cuts out like this. Again, you have those little notches, but in the reverse this time. Okay, notice these are going in and these were going out. And you also have a little tiny emboss with some dots and some staggered lines around there. Okay, so actually it's not even just embossed, it's like a little slit that goes all the way through the paper on there. All right, I'll try to get some actual photos up close so that you can see that. So they look nice as they get layered. You can use them in different ways. All right, maybe if you wanted, put some nice designer paper behind that. Maybe you could even layer these, you know, in a way as well. So lots of options there. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to do this style card again, but with the desert details combo here. Part of this suite includes the stamp set, the dies, and the designer paper that's called Delicate Desert. Okay, and it uses the colors Cajun Craze, Calypso Coral, Gray Granite, Pale Papaya, and Petal Pink and Soft Succulent. And you'll see those colors on the card that I'm showing you. Again, it has these nice sort of Navajo prints that coordinate with the stamps and the dies. These sort of desert sand looking papers and different patterns on the back. Okay, the Cajun Craze, the Pale Papaya, Soft Succulent, okay, and the Petal Pink is in there. So you have a lot of different sort of Western looking things, some patterns and some just background colors. All right, so very pretty, nice combination of colors to use. Now in the suite, you also have this ribbon, which is in the Pale Papaya. You can see I haven't even opened it yet. It's kind of a velour feeling ribbon. Come on. I like to pinch this up and then cut it that way. Did I get it? Nope. Got part of it. Didn't get the whole thing. There we go. Okay, it's a velvety or velour kind of a feel to it. It's actually called Faux Velvet Trim. Okay, so it has a nice feel to it, yet it's not terribly thick as you would think maybe velour or velvet would be. So it's not going to bulk up your card too much, but it's in that Pale Papaya color. So that's very pretty. It also comes with these sequins, gold faceted adhesive back sequins. So you don't need glue to put your sequins on anymore. That would drive me crazy. Putting glue on the back and then it seeped through the hole, and why they even need the hole in there? Probably to hold the sequin on, but you can also put a little gem in there if you ever wanted to. But these already have adhesive on the back, so you just can peel them off and add them to your project. Okay, so now click on to the project. All right, so like I said, we're using that same pattern for the card. And so here I'm using, oh, this is the gray granite, one of the other colors. So you can see the Cajun Craze, Pale Papaya, Soft Succulent, gray granite. And it also uses the Petal Pink, which I showed you in that smaller frame. Okay, so I'm not going to be using that. So this is going to be my back. I'm going to glue this on top of there. Let's see how quickly this all comes together, especially once your vellum is embossed or cut in this particular case, as you will see. Okay, then we're going to take our Designer Series paper, and it's already scored and folded. I'll lay that on the next layer. Okay, one thing about the liquid glue, you can maneuver it a little bit and make sure you're straight. Okay, I'm using Cajun Craze on the front, so that's where I'm saying I used a third color. I just wanted to bring in some of that Cajun Craze. I know it's all on the inside, but I wanted some of that showing through. I wanted a little bit more color on the front. It looked just a little, kind of a little dull to me. I wanted to pop it up. And also, I wanted the vellum to show through. So this is where I took that small little die cut and made patterns. So I just staggered it, kind of like you would see on a blanket. And look how nicely that kind of shows up there. All right, so you can also use a small die cut instead of actually embossing. I'm going to have that on there. And I already stamped and die cut 2 of those flowers and one of these little leaves. So you can see this is open here, but if you wanted to, you could always just glue back down inside those little pieces, and even if you left some of them in there and some of them open, you can mix and match it. So whatever looks good to you. It looks nice both ways. All right, so my succulent flowers are going to go on the side here, kind of overlapping like this. I already did my sentiment. I'm going to tuck that underneath like that, but I'm going to also do it in a place where I'm not covering up too much of what I already die cut out. If I did it down here, then it's covering up that. So I'm going to strategically place it where I can still see some of that pattern. So now I know I'm going to put some of my adhesive right in there so that this will cover it up. And for this, I was toying with the idea of maybe putting it on the side, on the back over here, but then I thought, well, maybe bring it over here a little bit, creates a little bit more balance. So you always think out where your things are going to be ahead of time before you start gluing it down, because then I could put some adhesive back here knowing that the very bottom is going to be covered up. Okay, so let's get started. So I'm noticing where I have to put my adhesive right here, and like I said, the Stampin' Seal Plus is very helpful for this. I know it's nice and strong, it's going to hold it down. Right, then I know on this side is where my flowers are going to be covering up, so I can put a bunch there. I'm going to put just a teeny tiny piece up at the top, a little bit over here, just a hint, because the Stampin' Seal Plus, like I said, is very strong, and I could also cover it with, see, against the dark, it does show up a little bit more, but I'm also going to cover it with some of those gold sequins. Okay, so if you wanted, you can also put dimensionals on the back of here if you didn't want too much of this sticking up. But I think I'm going to glue this down and then pop this little flower up here. So I'm going to arrange this first. Put that there. I'm going to glue this to the middle this time. You can arrange it wherever you want. Obviously, there's no fast rules. Get creative. Okay, so then I'm going to arrange where this is going to be. All right, so just about the bottom of that, where I see that tape going through, add just a couple of glue dots of liquid glue. If I was thinking ahead of time, I just cut some of these out and then was playing with it. If I was thinking ahead of time, I would have put my adhesive sheets on the back here. When you have very thin things, it's helpful. That extra adhesive. Okay, I'm going to add that there. Okay, I'll glue this over. Whoops. There we go. Like that. I'll put dimensionals on here. Oops, big ones. Pull those off. Okay, so then let's add just a couple of these sequins to bring a little shine. So I'm going to just take some of those and kind of hide where some of those little pieces are, the little glue things are. Okay, and maybe put, oops, just put another one down here. Okay, so it just brings a little shine to that. Really pretty, right? And you get to see the inside. So of course then your white piece will go on the inside and you can stamp a little pattern there. Okay, so there are two designs, and then here's the third one already done. You don't have to watch me make it. I think you get the idea by now. But I used the framed florets with the coordinating paper, fitting florets, they call it, which is really pretty. And I used gingham embossing folder on this one. So I made this one vertical this time. So I just used the gingham on the back, stamped a little something, a little sprig on the inside there, and used the sentiment, which is for a beautiful birthday, on the front for a special person on a special day. I just stamped that and fussy cut around. The ribbon is so pretty. This is a new ribbon also, variegated ribbon in balmy blue. You can see it has sort of an ombre effect to it, and it's very, very light, like a seam binding. And they don't call it that, but that's kind of what it is. Very, very light. So you can see I have a nice big fluffy ribbon here, but it's not really taking up much. I just took the pattern from the designer series paper and I cut out some of the flowers there. So that was, if you don't mind fussy cutting, that was on the easy side as well. And then the gingham on the vellum. All right, so here you go. 3 different options with the same layout. So let me get these here. Excuse my reach. All right, so we have 1, 2, and 3. So there you go. If you don't already have a demonstrator, you can go to my online store, go to my blog, stampwithlorraine.com. You can shop from there or go directly to lorrainesish.stampinup.net and you can shop from there. So thanks for tuning in, everybody, and happy stamping.